Hey everyone, it's the Our Shawn. Welcome to another edition of the Personality Assessments Done Right show. Today we have Holly McIlwain joining us. Sorry, Holly. Shouldn't have been that difficult, but she's joining us today. We're going to be talking about using personality styles to shape your culture, because I think that's one of the great uses of this information, right? If you get the personality styles down, you get the right testing in place, you can really think about what you want your company to be like, how you serve your customers, how you interface with your clientele. Can really be a big piece of it. So Holly's going to jump into that with us a little bit today. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a powerful topic for you out there. We always gear this to you, the business owners and leaders, the ones that have to make these types of tough decisions. For those who don't tune in as often, I'm the Our Shawn. I'm a corporate lawyer by training. I help people with ownership and control of their business, mergers, capital raise, partnership agreements, contract negotiations. And that's part of where this comes in, right? Is how do you get that right company? How do you get that operating right? And how do you execute that business plan? A lot of my work is about the future of business when I speak and I talk. And that's why I have the passion to bring you the show. Holly's been so generous to give us some great insights. She was on a past episode, so you can go back on our Personality Assessments Done Right channel and you can see that. And you can check out some additional information from her, but we're going to get some great insights today. We love your comments, so drop them wherever you're watching. You know, if you watch the Personality Assessments Done Right YouTube channel, our Shawn McBride Fans and Audience on Facebook. You might be over on one of our LinkedIn feeds. Wherever you're at, drop your comments. We'd love to hear from you what you learned, but also what you'd love for us to cover in the future. Remind you, we don't do investment advice and legal advice on the show. Everything here is just for your education, give you some ideas to help you improve your business, make it better. With that, welcome to the show, Holly. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Shawn. It's great to be here, and hello, everyone. I hope that you caught our episode last time and you're ready to get to work.
Exactly. Yeah. So, we talked some last time about just generally what could personality assessments do? What could they help you for? So the ones that missed that episode, go back and check that out after this. But I think the big thing is, these things can really drive your organizational performance. That's the whole point, right? Is to get the right people in the right seats, get the organization moving forward. Holly, why don't you talk a little bit about using these tools to shape your culture and how that can all fit together?
Absolutely. Well, some of the tools that we talked about were really common to a lot of people in business. Many people have used the DISC. It's extremely easy to get your hands on. Yep. And many people have used Strengths Finder from Clifton Strengths, and that's extremely easy to get your hands on. And so I'd love to kind of use those two as examples and tell you about the experiences that I have had in organizations and with organizations as a facilitator, because the worst thing that an organization could do is invest all this money in one of these resources and then not use them.
Right.
So a poster on the wall will not do the job.
Yep.
And there needs to be a little bit of debriefing. So I came prepared with 3 ideas to help your listeners actually activate some of the things that their companies might be using.
Oh, this is fantastic. All right. So this is great. This is going to be very powerful. It's going to help you, right? Because, that's the whole point, right? Is put this stuff into action. And you're absolutely right. Just giving everybody a bunch of personality assessments. And then I know some companies, they have like numbers that people wear on their name badge or on their wall or, color coding and all that. That's great, but you got to take it to the next level, right?
Yep. So let's talk next level.
Let's jump into it.
Yeah. Let's say that you're on a team of 5 to 30 people and you guys have completed the DISC. And so just a quick review, DISC is D for dominance, I for influence, S for steadiness, C for compliance. Yep. And we know that the way that a person is wired based on the observable behaviors will look really different than, if I'm a DI and Shawn, you have a DC, we're going to look different even though we have some similarities. So here's 2 ideas on ways that you can use the DISC to just break the ice and help people recognize the difference. If you have a group of 30 people or maybe a little less, something I like to do is put them in a room and have in each corner of the room a different DISC quadrant represented, D, I, S, and C. And I ask them to go to the corner where their strongest, most observable behavior, it shows up.
Yeah.
So they all go to the corners. And then I ask them to do the second thing. So number one, there's a really cool observation there. When you start to see other people who are like you, who have different roles than you, or who think differently than you, or who act differently than you, but you have something in common with your observable behavior in the disc.
Yep.
So that's one really cool icebreaker that just immediately shifts people out of their thinking.
Gotcha.
The second is what you do with them when they're there. And this is one that can be done with those groups of people, or if you have a smaller team and you're all kind of sitting in your office space and you need a 10-minute opener to your meeting,
yep.
and you want to use the disc that you've already invested in. So here's the 2-for-1. It's called a day in the life. And what I like to do is I like to give them a marker and a poster,
yep.
or if you're at your desk, just a piece of paper, and say, you have 2 minutes, or for larger teams, 10 minutes, to take me through a day in your life. So draw a picture or make a list, or however you choose to communicate it on paper, what it is like to have a day in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start to notice things. So people who are a high and I for influencing will probably fill it with the people that they're having engagements with and relationships with. And there's going to be a lot more activity and action in that group. You're going to hear them a lot louder than the other groups. People who are high in C are likely to go through the agenda of the day and make a list with check marks. Okay. And they're going to make sure it's accurate. And so they're probably going to pull out their phone and check their calendars and see if that's a day in their life.
Yep.
People who are high in D are likely going to make a list of maybe 3 things, be done with it, and be ready to move on. They're going to be the first group done. And God bless the people who are high in S, because they're going to be talking about it for some time. They're going to be trying to figure out if everyone's opinion has been heard. And they're going to be really trying to work through the process to get it done.
Yeah.
And that's important to digest when you pull together everyone and have them share what they came up with. These differences are super powerful in having organizations celebrate the differences, celebrate diversity, but also recognize that we need every single person who brings those gifts to the table.
Right. Well, it's bringing different gifts. And I think that becomes the interesting part of that, right? Is when you're building a team, you know, the common wisdom is, and I think it's pretty smart, you don't want all the same people on your team, right? You can't have everybody in the same personality style, or else you're going to have some long-term problems with your company. But you need to balance what everybody does the right way, because, you know, you need some intelligence, right? The D and the I they're going to need to interface a certain way, or else they're going to frustrate each other.
Absolutely. And, you know, a powerful moment with those a day in the life activities is when you have people do it individually and then share with the person next to them what their day looks like, and then ask them to listen, ask the opposite person, the person who's listening, to really listen for the things that are most important, the things that excite the person who's sharing a day in their life, and
right.
really start to pick up on the values that motivate a person to behave in a certain way. And that's when the organizational magic happens, because people get passionate about different things. And when you can find ways to leverage those passions towards a business goal, it's a gold mine.
Right. Exactly. So, and then that ties into the bigger theme we're talking about today, is shifting your business, right? So if you want to be intentional about leading your company the right way, you've got to think about different personality styles and what those personality styles mean to your business objectives.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's also, you know, one of the best things about all of these assessment tools is most of them will help us to have a mirror held up to us, to ourselves, and identify blind spots. Mm-hmm. And the blind spots are the things that really get in the way for building a strong company culture. And so, you know, I'd love to tell you about an opportunity for kind of bringing those blind spots into light in a very kind and low conflict way. And that's something that's kind of important, right? Yeah. So I have 2 strategies for that. One of them is one that we use with StrengthsFinder all the time. And for those of you who haven't caught the last one, I'm a certified strengths coach by Gallup. And so I have in my toolbox a lot of really cool Gallup tools. And one of them is this activity called Love, Hate, Envy. And it's ideal for the team who has already looked at their Strengths Finder, who has already spent a little time with their top 5 signature strengths, and had a little bit of an awareness or education in all 34 strengths. And so when you get a little comfortable with Strengths Finder and you've maybe had one coaching session, which I always recommend that after you take the assessment, you have a coaching session internally or externally, you start to know the things that come naturally, that feel good, and then you know the things that you're not so strong in, and they're a little bit of a stretch and they take a little more energy. An example for me is adaptability. And 34 strengths, adaptability comes as number 33. So for me to think on the fly and adapt on the side, like, it's really a struggle. And I would say that it's one of the strengths that I hate. It really frustrates me. But one of the strengths that I love, and it's in my top 5, is connectedness. I think it's my superpower because it allows me to go a little bit beyond what's comfortable, because I think everything matters. So if I was playing this game called Love, Hate, Envy, I would come out and say, okay, so I love connectedness, I hate adaptability, and I envy people who have a strength of deliberative, which means they sort through everything and think through everything and then act. And I don't have that. And it's a great opportunity for a team and a culture to celebrate differences, to recognize the people that have what they don't have, and saddle up next to them more. And it's also an opportunity to, in a really safe way, celebrate the things about yourself that you love. Like, connectedness is my superpower. When am I going to say that during a board meeting?
Yeah, exactly. You can't bring it out in that context, but you can certainly play on that strength and use that strength, right? And so I think that's a big part of it too, right? You know, there's something for knowing yourself, but then also knowing what your team members can do. It allows you to function better.
Yeah, and that leads me to my last trick. This is my last freebie for your show.
Okay.
But it comes in the form of a quadrant, and I usually introduce it on one piece of paper in 4 different corners, and it's really powerful. I call it "You Get the Best of Me." And so after I've had people think about either their strengths or their disc or those, the behaviors that, the behaviors that show up, or the things that motivate them, the pieces of them that they've discovered through their assessments and their introspection, I have them take a minute and fill in these 4 blocks. The first one is, you get the best of me when, fill in the blank. The second is, you get the worst of me when, fill in the blank. And then the bottom, I usually have, I need you to fill in the blank. And then you can count on me for fill in the blank. And what I usually do after people have taken a minute to fill that out, I have them go around the room and they will either say what their disc is or what their top 5 signature strengths are, or whatever other assessment tool the company is using, and then go through the full sentence. I need you to, you can count on me, you get the best of me when, you get the worst of me when. And I try to help the organizations not only build out a healthy culture through intentionally talking about the things that are really hard to talk about, but also I try to help them build their competency in whatever tool the company is using, and re-articulating the particular strengths or the disc or whatever in that context of the person and the relationship. And I've seen that it really does help bring to the surface the things that need attention operationally, so that the company culturally can take the appropriate steps forward and live what they proclaim.
Gotcha. So you're now using it to tune in. And I think that's one of the fundamental tenets of this, right? Is you need to understand what you want to be as a company before you start jumping into this, right? So you have to have that, I guess, that strong core values or mission as a company, right? Just jumping into adding a bunch of personality assessments, if you don't know what the company's supposed to be, I think would create a lot of challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, I've seen that before. I've seen an organization that I had a great opportunity to work with closely. They had the proclaimed values and they invested in the assessments, But unfortunately, the organization itself was not able to sustain change. And when part of the organization wants to move forward with an initiative and a development plan, and the rest of the organization is kind of focused on something different, it can be very frustrating.
Yeah, I can see how that can cause a lot of tension within the organization, right? And then one group's like, why are you even doing that? And the other group's like, this is important, right? So
yeah, and I was just going to say, I don't want that to scare someone, because small improvement is improvement. And when you have a healthy, highly functioning team within perhaps an unhealthy, lagging with function organization, you're still doing something. And that's connectedness in me, is saying everything matters, even if it is frustrating.
Well, and part of it too is really, this is a long-term play, right? This is not something you do overnight. You don't bring in somebody to help you do some personality assessments and expect to have immediate results the next week. I guess, some of the famous examples, people need to clear out part of the culture or start adjusting the culture before you can start seeing the results, right? So that the old saying, things might get worse before they get better, I think applies in some aspects.
Yeah. And, I think the workforce is changing a lot, and people want development as part of their work plan. And, I just had the privilege of talking to a bunch of executive leaders about this and encouraging them to take for themselves the opportunity and the advantage of some one-to-one coaching, and using the assessment tools to develop their own KPIs and to create their own development plan, and work with the coach pretty intensely. And then roll it out to their senior leadership team and their executive team, and then roll it out to their managers, and then roll it out to the whole organization, so that every level has the appropriate development and touch point, so that they can lead the people that are looking up to them.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, right, for building that out. So where do people, where do you start? So, if somebody's watching the video, they've heard some of the tips, but what's your absolute starting point to kind of get this ball rolling the right place if it's something somebody wants to think about for their company?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you 3 answers. If you are at the top of the decision-making tree, if you are a primary decision maker, the first thing you should do is pull in 1 or 2 people that you work closely with and that you trust, and ask them to go down this journey with you and explore some reputable organizations, companies, or platforms to see what it would be like to have something like this rolled out to your company. Get that experience for yourself first. If you are in the middle of management and you're responsible for a team and you're responsible for budgetary constraints, you know what? Propose something to the person you report to pilot it for the organization, and see if you can get a grant or a budgetary allowance to run a pilot for the organization. A lot of times that's where you're going to have the ability to make some great change. Right. And if you're one of the independent individual contributors, or a worker bee, or someone who just really loves your work, but you're not in a position to make some big changes, the first thing you can do is do it for yourself. StrengthsFinder, as we talked about before, is really inexpensive compared to other assessments. And there are some DISC assessments that you can do online that are free or low cost. Right. You really want to set yourself up with a coach who can take you through and debrief. And they're not as hard to find as you would think. Once you can call me. But, but really, as you debrief on what the assessment is, think about how that relates to your work. To make a difference in organizational culture, there has to be a connection between what you're doing and how you're learning about yourself. There has to be that connection to what your responsibilities are for work and how you can improve it or improve the way that things are done. And a good coach will be able to help you with that.
Yeah, and I think knowing my own strengths, as I've done a bunch of these over the years, it definitely helps you get some insight on where you are and how you think about things and how you might interact with other people.
Yeah. And Shawn, that last part is so important, the interaction with people. The more you know yourself and understand how you are different from other people, and commit to understanding other people's needs, the better you will be able to meet those needs and motivate people to do what you need them to do, or what the organization needs them to do. And usually if it's in alignment with what people have signed on to do in an organization,
Right.
When you speak to them in a language they need to hear and understand, they'll follow you, they'll go with you, and they'll be more willing to work with you.
Yep, I think that makes a lot of sense. So, Holly, you mentioned in passing, people could reach out to you. I know you do a lot of this with people, with organizations. Can you tell them how they get a hold of you, check out your work, maybe learn a little more?
Absolutely. So one way to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm Holly McIlwain, and the spelling is McIlwain.
Yes.
I'm also on Twitter at Holly Joy Hopes. I'm also on Instagram at, this is kind of a funny one, Mama Mac knows a lot about that. It's kind of a joke because there's a lot of things I don't know about.
Okay.
Or you could just email me, hollyjoymcilwain@gmail.com. You can look for me by name on Gallup's website and get a full workup of all of the areas that I can assist in coaching or keynotes or facilitating. Yep. And if you really love me, you can look me up at winnerpartners.net. So winner chicken dinner, winnerpartners.net, where I have the privilege of serving as a partner in talent development.
Fantastic. Thank you for that rundown, Holly. I know some people will find some value in your stuff. Thank you for making some time for us. Again, folks, we do want your comments, so drop them wherever you're watching. We'll remind you, you can check out past episodes, the upcoming episodes, all of that at personalityassessmentsdoneright.com. Of course, let us know what you want to see, and we'll try to tune some content in for you. We'll bring Holly back again at some point and talk some more depth about the things that you're dealing with. So thanks for joining us, everyone, today. Holly, thanks for making the time. It was a lot of fun.
Happy to be here. Take care, everyone.